Hi, welcome to Caregiver Cast. I'm Mary Elaine Petrucci, your host. My guest speaker today is Dr. Fannin, and he will be introducing himself, and we'll do some talking about energy fields and morphogenetic fields in resonance. So, Dr. Fannin, welcome to Caregiver Cast.
Mary Elaine, thank you so much for having me here, and such a worthy cause of dealing with caregivers. And I talk and work with a lot of caregivers anyway, so this is a very near and dear to my heart. I appreciate the opportunity here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm just so impressed with your background. So please make us more knowledgeable about what you do.
Well, I always use that adage of it really depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, with this stuff. So we can deal with it on an energetic level. We can deal with it on a cellular level. We can deal with it if somebody wants to deal with their stem cells and pain and things like that, or aging, whatever level a person wants to get involved with. They can actually go to my website, thoughtgenius.com. And you can look there, and there's a bunch of information. This year, I created a thing called Thought University, because a lot of people are asking me a lot of questions about things. So I said, well, how can I help them get the information? And so on social media, I developed about a dozen little icons. And so when you go down to from the homepage to visit Thought University, if you're looking for more information about meditative brain training or any of those kinds of things, you can select that, and it will bring up the videos about those kinds of issues where people can look at them. Those are all free, and so there's just a lot of information at thoughtgenius.com.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm just going to warn you and our listeners, we're having a lot of heavy wind, and it may be interfering a little bit with the transmissions. So just please bear with me with that. I loved your website, and I loved all of those little introductory videos like you had just mentioned in Thought University. So let's just start with what is an energy field and what's morphogenetic. What's a morphogenetic field or resonance?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll try and blend all of those things together, because they really do blend together. And that's why I decided to write my third book. It's called Under the Influence, because we're all under the influence of the energy. So under the influence, energy plus frequency plus vibration equals well-being. And so talking about all of that, it's just like, what is this energy? What is this influence? That sort of thing. So I will preface this comment a little bit by the introduction that I put in my book. Back in 2019, I began to work with a group called Vibra Vision, Vibra Vision. Now, I was really quite amazed when I saw this video. These are people who had put adhesive bandages over their eyes. Then they would cover that with a blindfold, and they could drive go-karts around an oval track without crashing into each other. They could play video games. They could navigate through freestanding poles, or they could step over a hurdle or duck under one that had a crossbar about chin level height. And they could sit down on the floor and take a deck of cards that have been really shuffled well, and put them as fast as they could do it into their suits, the jacks, hearts, and spades, that kind of thing. They could do that very quickly. A person could also drop, while they had the bandages and the blindfold on, they could drop colored beanbags into their hand. And as soon as it would hit their palm, or even before that, they were telling you what color that beanbag was. So at first I thought, well, there's got to be some trick to this, you know. And so the more I studied it and the more brain maps I did on people, and we began to look at these things. And the people that have the school in Ogden, Utah for Vibra Vision, we Nate Zalesnik and Mike Zalesnik, two brothers. And we began talking about the brain maps themselves. We were looking at activity in the brain on all of these kinds of things to see, well, how are they doing that?
Mhm.
Now, as I got deeper into this thing and we began to look at energy fields, so some of the equipment that I have is called GDV, gas discharge visualization. And so these people are putting their fingertips down on the glass of this, and it's shooting a 10 millivolt charge onto their finger, causing the gas discharge. So if anybody knows anything about biophotonic energy, and this is something that was introduced back in 1910 by Alexander Gurich, and he discovered the morphogenetic field along with photogenetic or photosynthesis kind of things. So we are energy beings and light beings. So going back to the issue with things like the Vibra Vision, and the deeper I got into this, I began to understand more about this thing called the morphogenetic field that he had discovered. Now, what that is in the cells of our tissue, we are basically light beings. And so we are emitting light in the tissues of our fascia of our cells. Now, the other thing that I saw that I was really amazed, and that was the head trainer, Mike Zalesnik. He would take these cast iron handles, a well handle, you know, they put on a well pump, you pump the water. He would take those and he could break those. I saw him do it with his finger, but then I saw him on stage do this with not just one pump handle, but broke all 27 of them across his knee with thousands of people watching. So when I was talking with Mike one day, I said, how did you do that? And so the way he likes to tell it is we're energy beings, and all I did was focus my energy. So this takes us back to some of these things about us as individuals being able to focus our energy. What does that mean exactly? Focus our energy. And that's where the morphogenetic field comes in. We have a field of energy that is in the cells of our body. And so Rupert Sheldrake, who is still alive today, he was born in 1942, he began to do research in paranormal activity. And he was looking at this thing called morphic resonance, how this resonates. And the other thing that I kind of uncovered in some of my research was that there's this thing called a vector field force. And so what that means is in physics, it is a field that directs the energy and the information. And so recently I've been doing a study with a math teacher out of Vancouver who had a special process of teaching kids math. And so we were looking not only at the brain maps, but it's like, how is this process that this person is working actually work? And so taking that into account along with the Vibra Vision, there is this field of energy in our body. And so we understand that looking at research dealing with not only our chakras, and for those who know what chakras are, they are meridians in our body that have energy, and whether you're male or female, they spin left or right and have certain frequencies and so forth. But I was looking at those meridians and our chakras and how that affected consciousness, or the relationship between consciousness and those electromagnetic fields in our body. The other thought here is if for people who are familiar with heart math, HEARTMATH, HeartMath. They've been around for 30 some odd years. And we understand that the electromagnetic centers of our bodies, one of them is the chakras, another one is the electromagnetic center around the heart, and then the third one is the electromagnetic center around the brain. So we have in our autonomic nervous system the ability to traffic energy and information from the heart to the brain and the brain to the heart. And so when people get overwhelmed, when they get frustrated, when they can't focus, these kinds of things, they are ramping up that part called the sympathetic nervous system. And the energy is out of balance, basically. So the other side of the equation is the parasympathetic nervous system. We want to bring those into balance. And so that's what HeartMath does. We look at the coherence of the energy and bring that back into balance. And we all have the ability to do this. And one of the reasons for that is that around the heart, which is the electromagnetic center around the heart, is 60 times greater than the electromagnetic center around the brain. And everybody thinks the brain runs the heart, but it's the other way around. It's the heart that runs the brain. Around our heart, we have over 4,000 neurites. And a neurite is like a neuron in the brain. So it can think, remember, give commands. It's like it can do functional processes as well. And so this field around the heart generates what's called a torus. So this energy that comes up through our chakras and out the top and around and then comes back through generates this energy field. And we all have that ability. And so it's going out several feet in any direction. So when we get within about 3 feet of somebody else, my field is talking to their field, or your field is talking to my field. That's how we know if somebody's having a good day or a bad day, or if they're upset or whatever it is. We can tell that. We can feel that energy, that vibration of what's going on. And so a large part of this is, how do you control that energy? We have to look at the coherence of that energy in being able to do that. So I'm going to weave another story in here. You and I had talked a little earlier about focus and concentration. And as we get older, we don't tend to focus or concentrate as well. I was talking to somebody who called me this morning. I had helped them years ago, and they just decided to call me. And they were having some issues with their focus and concentration. And so we talked about all these things. But I was working with a young man who was just graduating from high school. And he had trouble focusing and concentrating. He wanted to go to college. He wanted to go to the University of Las Vegas in Nevada, UNLV. But his ACT scores were so low, he couldn't get into any college. And so we talked about these different things that we could do. And one of them was the HeartMath situation we talked about to deal with his energy. Another one was we did a brain map on him, and then put him on this regimen to deal with the cellular function for his focus and concentration. What we call NRF1, NRF2, and Axio. These are activators. Some people call them supplements, but they're not really supplements. They activate these pathways within our genetic structure. And so 12 days after we put him on that, we did another brain map. And what I saw was really, really incredible. And if you want to bring up, let me have control, I can bring up a slide and I can kind of show you what we're talking about.
It's yours.
Okay, so let me share my screen here. And because, it's one word is worth 1,000 pictures, I guess. We might take a look at that. Let me go down here and find this study. Okay. So here is the brain maps as I was working with this individual. And before we put him on this regimen of NRF1, NRF2, and Axio, we look down here, we could see the legend here this red that we see is in the front part of the brain in his beta or his thinking activity, and why he couldn't focus and concentrate. And we put him on this regimen of NRF1, NRF2, and Axial. 12 days later, we did another brain map, and you can see here all the red is gone. And when we looked at his coherence, we see here on the left side where we have red and blue. So basically, the brain was fighting against itself in all these different frequency ranges. 12 days later, we can see where there are a few lines or no lines at all, indicate it's now within the normal range. And so what is really incredible with this is, you know, in the 28 years I've been doing this, I had never seen anything like this happen. So we looked at, I was asking myself, well, how is this even physically possible to do this? And so with this NRF1 and NRF2, we were activating the elements of the brain and the body, you know. And so when we look at things like oxidative stress, let me see if I can find that picture on oxidative stress here.
Can I just ask you a brief question?
Sure. Sorry, I get gabbing away.
No. It's so fascinating. How did like this young man's brain have all these, for the lack of
That's
a
a
better
really
word,
good question.
dysfunctional frequencies
That's a
going on
really
in
good
his brain?
question, because it can come from two different things. One is that when we look at the two parts of the brain, let me find that picture. I know I've got that one in here. Here it is. When we look at these two different parts of the brain, one is called the amygdala and the other is called the thalamus. The amygdala deals with our fight or flight kinds of things, whether we're going to engage in something. And then our subconscious is in our thalamus. So here in this red part is our subconscious activity. So let me go over here. I really am going to answer your question here.
Okay.
So our subconscious is down here where the thalamus is. And so 95% of everything that we say, think, and do is housed in our subconscious. Only 5% comes from the thinking part of our brain. So at the top of the thalamus, there are these things called reticular cells. And the function of a reticular cell is to bind one organ to another, in this case, the axonal columnar cells to the thalamus. And so it acts like an antenna, these axonal columnar cells. So when I have a thought or an emotion or a prayer or anything like that, it starts out in the thalamus, and that thought comes up the axonal columnar cells here and gets out into the field this way. Now, the reverse is also true. Things come in from the field and come down through us, and we are able to then it gets to the thalamus here and gets distributed from cell to cell to cell. And that's kind of what goes on here. So we're able to look at different aspects. Let's take a quick example here. These are emotions that we have. And so let's take somebody who is in a slower, denser frequency, like they can't focus, they can't concentrate, they worry a lot, things like that. So can a person go from worry to a faster frequency like passion or empowerment or love or enthusiasm? And the answer to that is yes, they can. They just can't sustain it because they are lodged down here in the thalamus of the brain. So a subconscious belief is a thought we have over and over and over again. So going back to why somebody cannot focus and concentrate, one of them may be as a result of their subconscious beliefs. So they believe that they are dumb, they're stupid, they're broken, they can't learn, those kinds of things. So they never activate this morphogenetic field that they already have in order to do that. The other way is from our genetic structure. It comes from our parents and things like that. So it gets in the cellular function, and so it gets transmitted. I used to joke about this all the time when I was speaking, and that was if my mother was anxious and fearful when I was being conceived, that function, so if she couldn't focus and concentrate, was anxious, all of those kinds of things, that was transmitted in the cells of my body. And so when I was born, then I couldn't focus and concentrate either. I would have things like ADD or, attention deficit disorder or hyperactivity, those kinds of things. So these two functions is the answer to the question. That might come about as a result of our subconscious beliefs, or it might be a genetic function that is going on within our body. And so we've inherited that. Now, the good news is, because I wrote my doctorate dissertation on this, you don't have to live with that. We can change that, because here's what happens. And then I'll come back to the story of what happened to this young man. When we have an experience in life, we add some meaning to that experience, and then we put some emotion to that.
Right.
And we call that a cognition. It's kind of like when you have, you hear a song and it takes you way back when, you have memories and feelings about that. Now, what happens is that cognition is bound together with a neurotransmitter that we call acetylcholine. So what happens, we know that we can dislodge that emotion. Doesn't get rid of the memory, but it dislodges the emotion. And so we have the event and the meaning of that event. Now it just doesn't have the emotion. Okay. So let's take a hypothetical example. Let's say that years ago, somebody had a boyfriend or girlfriend, and they had a special song. And the special song had a great meaning. And every time they heard that song, it would give them these good feelings and emotions that were going on. Then years later, maybe they broke up with this boyfriend or this girlfriend, and now this song had a different meaning altogether. And so here is that person, maybe 20 years later, walking down through the mall, they're playing music overhead. You're not even paying attention, but your subconscious mind is. And so it hears this song, but your conscious mind isn't even aware that it's playing. And all of a sudden you start to have these negative feelings about this memory of this song. And so it triggers that subconscious belief, and now it's getting into that. So what we're able to do, and I'm able to work with a lot of people, is you can change this subconscious belief. And if you want to know what's on your subconscious belief window, look at your behavior. It guides our behavior. I'm doing this and I don't want to be doing that. I want to be doing this instead. So that's one of the things that I can change people and show them. Here is the process of actually dislodging that emotion, so that you no longer have that association to the negative things, and you can now put the association to what it is you do want, not what you don't want. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And could you explain how?
Yeah, let me go back to finish off the story with this young man.
Sure.
So here's a young man who he can't focus and concentrate. We look at the genetic function of what's going on in his brain, and we see that after we put him on this regimen, then he was able to focus and concentrate and do better. And so he was able to get a tutor and work with this tutor so he could make up the differences in his learning that he missed while going to school, because he couldn't focus and concentrate, he couldn't learn. Today, he is just finishing his first year at UNLV and doing very well in his classes now. Wow. Because we were able to change the genetic function with this NRF1, NRF2, and the Axio. And so these activators he takes on a daily basis in order to just keep himself healthy so he can function at his optimal rate. We also got rid of his subconscious beliefs that he believed he couldn't learn, that he was dumb, he was stupid, he was broken, those kinds of things. And so any of us have this ability. it's not that some people do and some people don't. Now, let's go back to what we were talking about earlier about Vibra vision. How do these people do these amazing things? And we talk about this morphic genetic field that is in our body. And we talk about morphic resonance. This thing that we were talking about before about the vector field force. This is a field that is directing our thoughts and the energy and information and focus. So these people, as they're dropping colored beanbags in their hand, they are able to use this field force to register what's going on in their brain. Oh, this is green, this is blue, it has a particular vibration, that sort of thing. To navigate the pulse, they could tell, they could receive that energy and information. So it's kind of like radar going out and coming back for these individuals. And so by developing this process, these people can do amazing things. History is full of people who are common people who can do uncommon things like this. We all have that ability. Most of us just don't know how to do it. And so this is about learning, okay, what do I need to do? And what are the things that are holding me back? Is it a subconscious belief? Is it a genetic function? What is it that is preventing me from doing all of this? So when we look at the morphogenetic field, morphic resonance, Rupert Sheldrake brought to us and helped us understand how does all of that interact with one another. Those are the things that really we want to learn about, and what it is that I'm teaching a lot of people on how to do some of these things. Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds wonderful that you can change like the meaning of like that song or of a situation that you were in and give it a different meaning. However, do you have to do like the brain mapping and work with someone like yourself?
Oh, Mary Elaine, that's a great question. And I work with people all over the world. I still do brain mapping, but it's not necessary. So what I'm going to explain to you sounds a little bit like Star Trek here. So when we use the remote control on our TV set and we want to watch like channel 5, what do? We push channel 5, and so it sends out a frequency to our television set, and then we are able to look at channel 5. Or like the key fob on your car, when you push that key fob, that frequency will go out and turn on the lights and beep the horn or whatever it's set up to do. So when I look at some of the information, a friend of mine, Bruce Lipton, and I love Bruce's work, and he's done a lot of, he's considered the father of epigenetics. So we've worked together, we've done a lot of different things. And so he talks about these frequencies and how we can change what's happening in our genes. So one of the things that he also discusses is something called voice resonance. And so when I'm working with somebody, I'm able to take this scanner that I have. In fact, I have it right here. And so what I do is I will call people on their cell phone and I've analyzed their voice, because this technology is based on like a lie detector technology. So it's going to analyze the voice intonation. So I need 10 seconds of their voice. So it will analyze where their voice is, and then it will create 4 MP3s that they can listen to, and I can email these MP3s to them. And it's based on that individual on that day, what their voice is, and it will bring it back into balance. So this scanner that I have, we can balance their voice. Now, some of the other technology comes from the space race, and they wanted to look at astronauts and cosmonauts, and they wanted to see what their vital signs were when they were on long space voyages. And
Mhm.
so these frequencies, this energy and this frequency, we can go in and we can look at, and it will give me some reports. One of them is like the chakras. We can see what's going on there. And that's probably a longer discussion. But we get this report and we can see where they're actually at with their vital signs and so forth, and what category are they in. So we look at some of the foundations of medical science today and looking at this technology, and more of these kind of devices are coming on the market. But and so this is what I work with people on these things, is to be able to scan their bodies. And so the scanner kind of looks like this. And so it's scanning their body and saying, okay, where are your frequencies now? And it will show you where they are. And then it will balance those frequencies. And so it'll do a second scan and then show you the difference between where they were and where you are right now.
Mm.
And so your body then begins to learn. We're telling your brain and your body, this is normal. Go here, go here, go here. And so over time, the brain and the body are learning this is what's normal. And so then it begins to accept that this is normal. This is where I'm going. And so this is about bringing those into balance. So whether it's focus, whether it's concentration, whether it's a genetic function, whatever it is, we have a method of being able to get to that and understand what you need to do and then allow that to happen.
Okay, are you using those MP3s that you created when you were listening to the person's voice to get your body into the
Yeah.
right frequency?
Yeah, let me show you a study
Okay.
that I did. Let me find that here. So we were talking earlier about heart math.
Mhm.
And so I did a study with some individuals here where on the left-hand side of these screens, it shows them just using the heart math to balance the coherence of the energy. And so then what I got the wild idea to have somebody listening to these MP3s while they were doing the coherence training. And what I found is people were getting 200 and 300% efficacy, or an increase in how effective this was, because their voice intonation was balanced while they were doing this. And
Mm.
so it's really quite amazing in being able to utilize some of this technology in ways that are very beneficial for people. So good question. Thanks for asking that.
Oh, you're welcome. How long does it usually take for doing this heart math and this use of MP3s? Is it a long process that you work with someone to get it balanced?
Yeah, well, there's two possible answers to that question. One is, like, every morning when I get up, I
Mhm.
do my scans for myself. And if people want to buy a scanner, I can sell them a scanner. But most people just want the service. They don't necessarily want the scanner, but they can have that to do scans on other people, family members, whatever, if they want to do that. But most people need to go through like my 3-month program where I teach them, here's what you do with this, kind of thing. So they do it for themselves, and or they can just get the service. So where they can buy, like 5 scans, for $295, and then schedule them over every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, and then get online to do these things so they can have the information. Then if they want to go a little bit deeper, then we can get them to that point where they now understand, here's what you do with this. And this is how you work with other people, because most people wouldn't have the training or the knowledge to do something with that. And so that's the idea here. If somebody wants to do that with other people, then they get the training and have their own scanner. They can do that and provide the services for people and know exactly what they're doing. Or they can just do this for themselves and go through the process. Now, the answer to the shorter answer is when I get up in the morning and I do my scans, do my voice resonance. It generally takes me to do that and my heart math, and then do about 25 minutes of meditation. About an hour is what I spend in the morning being able to do all of these functions. So it's not a great deal of time, and you're covering a lot of bases all at once.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So people go through your 3-month program and then they can continue doing this independently, or do they check in with you every so often when they feel like they're out of balance?
Yeah, so let's say they're not going to buy the scanner. There's 2 different ways. They can have the scanner, they can do that on their own. And during that 3 months, we kind of train them on what to do. But let's say they just want the service. So they can buy a package of scans, 5 scans for $295. And then they can do that every week or every other week. Whatever they do, they can go on to my website, schedule an appointment, and then we can just do their scans that way. And so they can just have the services and do it for themselves, or have the scanner and do it not only for themselves and family members, but other people if they want to offer the services to other folks.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. It sounds like you have to, so through this 3-month program, let me see if I clarify this for myself. You do this 3-month program, you do the heart math, you do the MP3s together, and that gets your body more in alignment with the frequencies?
Yes, it does. So going back to the heart math part of your question, part of the 3-month program is you get your own heart math device. And so people own their heart math device, and every time they do a session, it gets recorded in the cloud. So when we do our scanning sessions, we'll go to the cloud and take a look at how are you progressing with the heart math kinds of situations. So we can see, I can see by the patterns there, are you losing focus and concentration because your mind is busy? Or are you losing focus and concentration because of subconscious beliefs? And during that time, they say, well, I want to change this belief. I'm doing this, and I don't want to be doing, I want to do that. So we do that during the 3-month program. And during that time, they will learn how to do this. Once they learn how to do the process, you really don't need me. You can figure out what it is that you want to do and just use the process to do it. Okay. And so that's the whole idea behind this whole 3-month program, which for 3 months to get all of the things we're talking about, it's about $1,600 in order to go through that process and learn all of these things. But you're also getting it for yourself. Most people will begin to see after about 2 or 3 sessions the changes that begin to happen with themselves. The MP3s, they can listen to those as much as they want. They can play them in the background. They can do all kinds of things with that. So every week when we are doing them, or every other week, they get a new set of MP3s, based on where their voice is at that time. So it's continually balancing, continually changing. And that's what this whole process is. You're somewhat far away from normal, and we're just teaching the brain and the body, go here, this is normal, go here, with the scans, with the voice, with the NRF1, the NRF2, changing the cellular function. One of the things that I might mention while I'm on that is one of the things that we have been taught was we have antioxidants and free radicals. We know that free radicals are not very good. What we were taught is that if you eat enough fruits and vegetables, you'll have enough antioxidants to kill the free radicals. Well, that's not true. At any given moment, you have over 300 septillion, that's 300 with 27 zeros behind it, free
Mm.
radicals running around in your brain and your body. And a lot of that is due to what we call oxidative stress. If you take an apple and you cut the apple in half,
Mhm.
and it starts to turn brown,
Mhm.
that is oxidation. And so we know that the brain and the body cannot keep up with that. So what it does is it gives you like a 1-to-1 ratio. One antioxidant will kill one free radical. Well, if you have 300 septillion free radicals running around, there's no way you can keep up with that. And so I'll use this example. It's kind of like if your house is on fire and you take a Dixie cup full of water and throw it on the house, and you try to put the fire out with
Mm.
a Dixie cup full of water. That isn't going to work. But
Okay.
if you are using the NRF1, NRF2, and the axial kind of thing, now you have a 1,000,000 to 1 ratio. And that's not a 1,000,000 to 1 ratio, like it's killing 1,000,000 free radicals, not per day, but per second. It's a 1,000,000 to 1 per second ratio. So this
Wow.
is the way our brain and our body was designed to function with our DNA, and with the dealing with the mitochondria of the brain and the body. So that this is one of the other reasons why we don't focus and concentrate. We have too many free radicals running around in there, and so we begin to lose that focus and concentration. This is about increasing those mitochondria in the brain and allowing that to function normally the way that it was designed to function. And
Mm.
so that's another part of what the training is about, is dealing with something called aging and serotonins. So in our body, as we get older, we begin to lose the serotonins, and that's one of the reasons why we age faster.
Mm.
One of the things that I also work with is looking at stem cells. It used to be with stem cells, you'd have to get injections and they were painful and all this sort of thing. Well, there's new technology out that deals with this light. We talk about the phototherapy in the photosynthesis within our body, that we have these thing called copper peptides. And so it activates from the heat in our skin, activates the light within that, and activates these copper peptides, which then changes our stem cells and begins to rejuvenate and reactivate our skin stem cells. So I have a patch on the back of my neck today. I'm touching it right now. It's about the size of a quarter. And so you put that on your body and it activates the stem cells so that they can begin to heal and function the way that they were meant to. Again, it's another one of these pieces of technology that people can utilize on their own. You know, I'm 71 years old and I feel like I'm actually about 30, you know, so, and I've had 2 strokes, so I don't want to have that again. But the reason was, you know, the first stroke, I never saw that coming. And so I had just started taking the NRF1, NRF2, and I was having a Zoom meeting with the Vibra Vision people the night before. And during the middle of the night, I felt like I needed to go to the bathroom. And so when I was on the toilet, I actually passed out while I was on the toilet. And I woke up in a pool of blood. My face had hit the tile in the bathroom, and my glasses had cut my nose and so forth. So I kind of got back to bed. And then a couple hours later, I woke up and I couldn't open and close my left hand, and I couldn't speak. And so the words in my head were not the words coming out of my mouth. And I knew in that moment the stark terror that my life had changed, you know, and not for the good at that moment. And so I have some great pictures. I'll tell this story because it's my story. So when they took me to the hospital, I was there for a couple of days, and then they sent me to a rehab center
Mhm.
where I had to learn to use my hand and do all these things and go to speech therapy and so forth. I was there only 12 days. They told me out of all the people that had been through this rehab facility that I had the fastest recovery of anybody they'd ever seen.
Wow.
Well, what they don't know is what I didn't tell them, that I was taking the NRF1, NRF2, and the axial while I was in the hospital. And I have some pictures of me with the,
Wow.
cuts on my nose and bruises on my forehead, sort of thing, and
Mhm.
taking the axial and the NRF1 and the NRF2. And so when I had my second stroke, which was just after Christmas this year, I
Mhm.
had been away from taking the NRF1, NRF2 for a long period of time because of pandemic and a lot of different reasons. So when I woke up in the middle of the night and I was really dizzy, the I called my doctor the next day and they said, "Well, go to the hospital, have them check you out." So I did, and they said, "Well, we think you've had another stroke." So they kept me there 5 days, and my blood pressure had gone up so much that that's what was causing the dizziness because I wasn't taking the NRF1, the NRF2, and the axial. And so uh, as I'm laying in bed in the hospital those 5 days, it gave me a lot of time to think. It's like, what are you doing with your life? You've got all of this experience, you've got all of these things that you're doing,
Mhm.
and look what you're doing to yourself. How why are you allowing that? And so I just decided, well, that I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to write my third book,
Mhm.
Under the Influence, dealing with energy, frequency, and vibration of what this is and how we can deal with ourselves. So that brought that into being. And then the Thought University, I brought that in to help people. And then I decided, all right, I'm going to take this a lot more seriously in helping people,
Mhm.
because that's really what I love to do is I love to help people just like you in helping people find ways that they can do things for themselves, for others, and so forth. And it's just like, I don't have any magic. We all have the magic, but we are common people doing uncommon things. And so
Mhm.
we all have the capability. The biggest question is, will we? And that's what I was asking myself, because you know all this stuff, will you do something about it? And so that's what started me on this pathway and why we're having this conversation today, and
Mhm.
what can you do about it? What can your audience of people listening and watching this, what can they do about it? There is something they can do, that it's not some magic formula that they have to have, or they have to have special genes in order to make this function. It's a matter of learning it, and it's a matter of doing it. And so
Mhm.
if a person's willing to spend an hour a day in doing things that they would normally do anyway, and do it consistently, then they're going to get the result. So
Wow. Thank you
that's
so
the,
much for, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just could say that's both the long and the short answer to that question.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that, your personal story of having two strokes. I would say that would be pretty magical because as a speech pathologist, if I could see that much improvement after someone
Yeah.
had a stroke, I'd be on the moon and would like, so
Well,
what?
and I have to say this while we're on this,
Mhm.
that some of these things that I've been telling you are not designed to cure, mitigate, or prevent any kind of disease or situation.
Okay.
It's just that the FDA requires us to kind of say that. So that's my story, and I'm able to tell that because it's my story. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to have the same result,
Right.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know a lot of things that people use that aren't within traditional medicine. You really can't make that claim. You have given the audience and myself included all this information about energy and how we can learn to, with your assistance, learn to get into a vibrational mode that is more natural for ourselves. What final closing statement can you give to caregivers regarding energy, especially when they're burnt out and they don't have any more energy to do anything?
Well, and I can relate to that because I have some different people that I work with. One comes to mind is this husband and wife, and he had a stroke, and she is the caregiver trying to deal with all of this kind of stuff. And so there are a lot of people who are dealing with exactly what you're talking about at the end of the day. And we look at what gives us that energy, going back to the mitochondria and the what we call NAD, superoxide dismutase. That's what gives us some of the energy in order to do that. And so these activators that we're talking about, and the mitochondria in the brain is what's going to give you energy. So at the end of the day, you've got energy left for yourself, and you can go throughout the day and be able to do what you need to do in order for yourself and as a caregiver for other people, a family member or spouse or whatever that you're dealing with. And so usually I'm the last bus stop for people. I don't have any energy. I just can't go on. I can't function. I don't have any desires. I forgot how to want because my hopes are dashed all the time. So this is giving them a way in that order to think about this, to do this. But more importantly, and I guess I've learned this lesson firsthand, the thing that got me away from a lot of this stuff that I know was I didn't have the energy to do what I needed to do. I didn't feel like I could do that. I didn't want to exercise. I didn't want to meditate. I didn't want to do anything, and so I think that's when I got the second wake up call. And it was like, okay, if you're not going to pay attention, we're going to give you another wake up call here. You can have a second stroke. We're not going to damage anything, but we're going to give you a second stroke so you can think about this. And now, like I say, I feel like I'm 30 years old now and not 71. I have the energy. I can get through the day, and I'm sleeping well. I'm functioning well. I'm doing all the things that I want to do. More importantly, I'm being who it is I want to be. And so for caregivers, they have within themselves somebody who they want to be, who they would like to be. They just don't have the energy. They just don't have the willpower. They don't have the wherewithal to get where it is they want to go. And so they end up giving up their own identity for somebody else. And I think that's the key here. They have hopes, they have dreams, they have aspirations themselves. And this is about getting back to a place from wherever you're at, no matter where you are in the spectrum of what it is you need to deal with, in dealing with it and doing it in a timely manner so that you can actually feel yourself, you can be who you want to be. And I think that's the message I'd like to leave with people.
Thank you so much. I would really agree with what you said, and because you have to take care of yourself and know what you want so that you can have that vibrational energy with the other person. So it's more of a
You can't give away something you don't have.
Exactly.
And so you got to have it in order to give it away to somebody else as a caregiver.
Most definitely. Dr. Fannin, thank you so much for being here. Could you please tell the audience how they can reach you?
Yeah, if you go to my website, thought, like thinking, THOUGHT, genius, GENIUS.com, thoughtgenius.com. The information is there. You can get a hold of me. There's a phone number on there that you can leave a message for me and I will call you back. Or you can email me. You can email info@thoughtgenius.com. and we'll get back with you with the information that you need. But that's the place to start, thoughtgenius.com.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fannin. It was an incredible learning about energy, and thank you so much for taking time to explain that to the audience today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Elaine, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. You be well now.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.